conversation since the indictment. We've talked before, but I do want to start with your sense of the work that you all did in that 800-page document that you came out with and what you see the manifestation of that in this indictment.
Well, thank you for having me, Ali. Let me just be clear. Our committee had the responsibility to look at the facts and circumstances that brought about January 6th. We did it over that 18-month period. We issued that 800-plus page report, but we were not a prosecutorial body. So we shared that work with the Department of Justice. Now, so much of that work was clear in terms of the committee's findings, but we couldn't present it to a grand jury because we were not that kind of forum. But I'm convinced that the special counsel and his team looked at it, reviewed it, and said it makes sense. And so 3 of the 4 charges, as you know, specifically come directly from our recommendations. It is clear in the minds of our committee, based on our work, that Donald Trump should have been charged. I'm convinced that the charges, once they're given a full vetting in terms of a court, he will ultimately be held accountable for what occurred on January 6th. It was a tragic, sad day for democracy, but somehow, with the help of the good men and women who protected the Capitol, we were protected. But we can't allow anyone, even a president of the United States at that time, who's no longer president, to be above the law.
In the last hour, I had a conversation with J. Michael Luttig, whom you know, a conservative jurist, who made the interesting point that while this trial is crucial, not just for the first 3 counts, but that 4th and final count, the violation of rights, the election may be more important. That may be not where a jury of Donald Trump's peers decide what happens to the future of this country, but where Americans who have the vote decide what happens to this country. Tell me about that, because you investigated this from a legal perspective, though you are not a prosecutorial body. But in the end, Donald Trump could be in jail and still be the next president of the United States.
Well, you know, that's for the lawyers and jurists to determine about that. But I'm convinced that's right. Not only could he be there, but he'd have civil service protection that's guaranteed any former president for life. So there are some sticky answers going with this. Tied to this is I'm not certain that we should delay the election. Just because a person is running for office, there's no reason to say we need to put it off. Everyone is entitled to a speedy trial, even a former president of the United States. So I'm convinced that him trying to delay the trial is just a typical Trump fashion. But in terms of the other part, as you talked about, Ali, that Ku Klux Klan Act is significant. Yep. As you know, it came about after the end of the Civil War. And Congress put it in place so things like this couldn't happen. You know, the Congress said we are the United States of America. We can't pit one side against the other and remain united. So it was an effort to keep us united as a country, but it was clear that what was occurring on January 6th was an intentional intent to divide this country. And that was what our committee looked at, too.
And interesting about that, because that act was brought in because of the violence that was being used against people of color and black people to keep them from voting. But in fact, the way it is applied in this indictment is not a conversation about the fact that some black people in Michigan were being disenfranchised by Donald Trump's activities or black people in Georgia. This was all of us. When you don't count votes properly, you imperil the value of every single vote in America. So if I have no problem voting and my vote, I think it's being counted, what Donald Trump and team were alleged to have been doing was to undermine all of our votes, to say, we'll choose whose votes matter, we'll choose which ones to count, we'll stop counting when it stops going our way.
And if not, we will create a process that prevents it from going forward.
Right.
So it was as if votes in the greatest democracy in the world all of a sudden didn't matter. And so they were making the rules as they were going to fit their situation. And in a democracy, you cannot do that. We're a nation of laws. And so if you lose, you can go to court, you can ask for recounts, but you can't change the law. Donald Trump wanted to change the law to the point that if we did not certify the election, in all possibility, he could just be held over as president until this issue was resolved. But we can't do that in a democracy. And I'm convinced that his advisors at that time, who were telling him he could do certain things, were patently wrong. His attorney general, his general counsel, and others were quite specific. You lost the election. And for whatever reason, he refused to accept it and promoted an alternate process. And it's the promotion of that alternate theory in terms of the election that's got him in trouble.